Hi, I'm Beth. Welcome to this yoga class. This is going to be a short yoga practice with just 3 yin yoga poses, and then I'm going to read a sleep story. So it's intended as a pre-bed practice. The yin yoga postures will hold for about 2 minutes each or so. Now you can definitely spend longer in the yin postures. You might want to hold the first two poses that we do anywhere from 2, 4, 6, 10 minutes long. The last pose I'm going to suggest that you continue to hold as I read the short sleep story. So it's a little pre-bed routine. You might even try doing it in bed. You can be in your pajamas like I am tonight. Feel free to leave your socks on. Get as warm and cozy as possible. You might want a blanket. I have just a small pillow. I'll show you how to add that into the poses if you'd like. Oh, and set yourself up near a wall or the headboard of your bed. All right, we're going to start. The first pose is a really gentle back bend, and we're going to have our shins up the wall. Now, when we use the wall poses, can be a little tricky to get into. So what I recommend is that you sit fairly close to the wall. If you see I'm kind of in side saddle, my feet are touching the wall. I'm going to move myself forward so that I'm face down on the mat and swing just my shins up to the wall. So let's see if I can do this relatively gracefully. When you get down, you might have to scoot your body a little back so that your shins can comfortably rest against the wall. Now here's where you might choose to use the pillow. If you'd like, you can have the pillow as a prop right under your ribs to help give you a little support. You could also use a blanket. You could have other props in front of you. You could have a pillow for your head. You can place your hands together in a prayer or Anjali Mudra with your thumbs resting on your third eye. So this is a version of Sphinx Pose. Sphinx Pose is generally considered to be a fairly mild back bend. The way we're doing it with the shins up the wall does up the intensity a little bit. So feel free to scooch further away from the wall. You can also adjust the position of your feet. I have my legs a little wider than hip width. You can touch the feet together. Well, that feels nice. I might keep mine there. You can have both legs closer together. Arrange your legs so that this pose feels doable in your lower back. It doesn't feel sharp, or certainly don't want it to hurt in any way. And in yin, once we find our pose, we hold in stillness for a bit of time. And we've already been here about a minute as I've been talking, but we'll stay a bit longer, giving you the opportunity to start to rest in the pose. As I get quiet, hopefully you can start to grow quieter in your body and eventually in your mind as well. Now, if at any time the sensation in your back builds up to too much intensity, it doesn't feel sustainable, you can adjust the pose. You might scoot your arms, your forearms a little further forward to allow your chest to sink a little bit more back to the mat. You can absolutely cross your arms and take a little rest this way. So remember, the intent of this practice is to help prepare for bed, or maybe just to prepare to relax your body after a long day. So that's why we try to find a version of the pose that we can sustain. You might be able to hear my breathing. Allow your own breath to be soft and comfortable. Perhaps letting the exhale start to extend a little longer than the inhale. So let's take just 2 more mindful breaths, following the breath as you breathe in, feeling the breath as you exhale. Last an inhale and exhale, take a breath in, and on the exhale, blow the breath out long and smooth. Okay, just like getting into this pose, the getting out can sometimes be a little awkward. So I recommend that you sort of swing your legs to one side, roll your body a little bit, perhaps even rest for a moment on your sides. It might feel good to pull your knees toward your chest for a moment. And use your hands to help yourself up. We're going to be back at the wall for our next pose, which will be a recline twist. And the wall is nice for this because it just gives us a little bit more leverage. The pillow can be under your head if you'd like. I'll also show you the option of putting your pillow between your legs. I'm just going to grab my clock so I can time this pose for us. All right, we're again going to start in this sort of side saddle-less position with the knees bent. And this time I'm going to try to press my soles toward the wall. Don't worry if they don't press strongly into the wall, but that's the shape I'm going to look for. I'll have my pillow here for my head. So the legs are kind of like in a chair pose shape. They're bent at approximately 90 degrees. I'm going to come into this position on my side. Maybe find a position where I can rest my head, adjust my legs from here so that my legs are roughly stacked. They don't have to be exactly stacked. And then what I'm going to do is roll the torso in the opposite direction of the leg so that this is my right side, my left shoulder moves toward the floor. Now the arms can be in a T or a cactus shape. They might be more in a low V. It doesn't matter how you place the arms. So you can have the legs right here. I mentioned you might like your small pillow or blanket between the legs. Sometimes this feels better for a little support. And then there's also the option of extending the top leg. I have a cushion right there. My foot doesn't quite reach there. So it can just hang out there. If you have a pillow or a block, you can rest the leg there. You don't have to extend the leg. That's an option. I'm going to stay right here with my leg a little supported on my small pillow. And we'll be here for about 1.5 minutes because we're going to do both sides. So once you find your shape, start to feel the breath in your torso. Even though we are twisted a bit in the torso, we want to allow space for the breath. So feel length in the torso as you breathe in. And then perhaps a little releasing into the twist as you exhale. You have the option of turning your gaze in the opposite direction of your legs if you'd like. And remember that the breath is smooth the whole time. No worrying about taking a deep breath, trying to take a big breath. It's more important that the breath feel comfortable and natural so that it's nourishing you in these pre-bed poses. All right, let's take 1 or 2 more breaths on this side. And start to take your leg in. If you were using the pillow or blanket underneath your leg, you might move it to the other side. I'm going to sit up. You don't have to. You can just flip your knees to the other side. I'm just going to transfer my body a little bit. Transfer my clock. All right, so now I'm facing away from you. I still have my feet pressed up against the wall. I'm going to lie down, this time on my left side first, and find a position that feels comfortable on my side before I roll open. I'm finding that position on my side. I'm pressing my feet against the wall, making sure I have length in my torso, so space between my hip and my shoulder. And then from here, I'm going to start to open up, reaching my shoulder away. And you might find that you have less capacity to twist on one side of the body than the other. The second side might feel a little more stiff than vice versa. I don't know if you can see my top leg here, but you know what to do based on what worked for you on the first side, or perhaps the side is different. So legs can stay stacked. You can place a blanket or another prop between your knees if you'd like. And then you also have the option to extend the top leg. And we'll be in the pose in this side again for about 2 minutes total, another minute and a half or so. See if you can find some quietness in your body. We allow the stillness of our body to encourage our mind to begin to settle. That process can be really challenging, but that's what we're hoping for or cultivating, practicing in our yoga practice. Remember that you can have the arms anywhere. I've got mine stretched out in a T. You might like to reach this arm overhead or more in a diagonal from the legs. And neck can be turned away from the knees or in the same direction as the legs. All right, last few breaths on this side. And then to roll up, you'll probably want to roll back in the same direction as your knees. Possibly stay there on your side for a moment. And then use your hands to help push yourself back up. All right, this is going to be our last pose. It's legs up the wall. In Yin, we call this pose caterpillar up the wall. So caterpillar is when our legs are out from our torso. I'm going to encourage you to remain in this pose as I read the sleep story, if that works for you. So even more important to set this pose up in a really comfortable, cozy way. One way to practice our caterpillar legs up the wall is with something under the torso. So a little pillow or blanket supporting basically your hips, not under the torso, under your hips. You could rest something on the torso. You could also rest the pillow under your head. I'm going to show it with the pillow giving a little support to my hips. Now legs up the wall, again, I said this about each pose, but it is an awkward pose to get ourselves into, so we'll just do our best. If you're using any kind of support, you can use something thicker like a fat pillow or a bolster too. You're going to sit right on it to do legs up the wall. And this time you want to scoot your hip as close to the wall as possible to start, because it's easier to scoot away than it is to scoot closer once we're up. So I'm going to do this in one, hopefully fluid motion, where I'm going to lean back on my arms and take my legs up at the same time. So here I go. And as I did that, I came off my pillow a little bit, but once you have your legs up, it's easy enough to push into your feet a little bit on the wall and find the space to adjust your prop underneath you. If you're using the prop, you want it to feel like it's comfortably supporting your hips. You can even have the edges of your bottom hanging out over the prop if that feels okay. I'm about, let's see, about maybe my bottom's maybe about 6 inches away from the wall. You might be scooched up closer to the wall, or you might be even further if this is tight on your hamstrings. Now we have a lot of options here. Remember, I said you want to find a version of this that helps you to relax, to be in stillness for several minutes now. So the first thing we can adjust is if your legs are not comfortable here, you have the option of taking them wide. This is a dragonfly at the wall in yin. You have the option of putting the soles of your feet together for a butterfly at the wall. And this might feel good if you like an inner thigh stretch. And you even have the version of bending both feet, placing your feet or bending both knees with your feet on the wall. And this is wall happy baby. I'm going to stay here with my legs extended. If you are wearing pajamas like me rather than leggings, expect them to slide down your legs so you can always tuck your pajamas into your socks for warmth. And then we can adjust the arms as well. They can rest on your belly, maybe one hand over belly, one hand over heart. They can be by your sides in a lower position or more open, a T. If you want to create more length, arms can come overhead as well. Take a few moments to start to settle into quiet and then to begin tuning into your breathing. I'm going to stay here with you for about 3 breaths, and then you stay, but I'll start to move to come to a seated position to read tonight's sleep story. All right, stay in this pose or any version that you prefer. If you choose to be in a different position to listen to me do the sleep story, you can bring your legs down, roll back over to your side, and maybe you prefer being here in a nice sideline position and getting cozy there to listen to the story. Maybe you want to skip the story if you're already sleepy enough. Feel free to do that and go ahead and go right to sleep. So this story, I look for stories from the public domain, and I generally look to read something that's more of a parable or kind of a story that maybe is relaxing and quieting. So the one I came up with today, this is from the book Eastern Stories and Legends. And the story is The Hare, H-A-R-E, That Ran Away. And it's by Marie Shedlock. Take a last moment or two to adjust yourself and be comfortable before I start to read. And then allow yourself to attend to my voice while relaxing everything in your body and letting the rest of your senses, maybe closing your eyes, softening your sense of smell, letting your sense of touch give over to gravity, letting those senses be soft. The hare that ran away. And it came to pass that the Buddha to be was born again as a lion. Just as he had helped his fellow men, he now began to help his fellow animals. And there was a great deal to be done. For instance, there was a little nervous hare who was always afraid that something dreadful was going to happen to her. She was always saying, "Suppose the earth were to fall in, what would happen to me?" And she said this so often that at last she thought it was really about to happen. One day, when she had been saying over and over again, "Suppose the earth were to fall in, what would happen to me?" she heard a slight noise. It was really only a heavy fruit which had fallen upon a rustling leaf. But the little hare was so nervous she was ready to believe anything. And she said in a frightened tone, "The earth is falling in." She ran away as fast as she could go, and presently she met an old brother hare who said, "Where are you running to, Mistress Hare?" And the little hare said, "I have no time to stop and tell you anything. The earth is falling in, and I am running away." "The earth is falling in, is it?" said the old brother hare in a tone of much astonishment. And he repeated this to his brother hare, and he to his brother hare, and he to his brother hare, until at last there were 100,000 brother hares all shouting, "The earth is falling in." Now presently the bigger animals began to take the cry up. First the deer, and then the sheep, and then the wild boar, and then the buffalo, and then the camel, and then the tiger, and then the elephant. Now the wise lion heard all this noise and wondered at it. "There are no signs," he said, "of the earth falling in. They must have heard something." And then he stopped them all short and said, "What is this you are saying?" And the elephant said, "I remarked that the earth was falling in." "How do you know this?" asked the lion. "Why, now I come to think of it, it was the tiger that remarked to me." And the tiger said, "I had it from the camel." And the camel said, "I had it from the buffalo." And the buffalo from the wild boar, and the wild boar from the sheep, and the sheep from the deer, and the deer from the hares. And the hares said, "Oh, we heard it from that little hare." And the lion said, "Little hare, what made you say that the earth was falling in?" And the little hare said, "I saw it." "You saw it?" said the lion. "Where?" "Yonder, by the tree." "Well," said the lion, "come with me, and I will show you how." "No, no," said the hare. "I would not go near that tree for anything. I'm so nervous." "But," said the lion, "I am going to take you on my back." And he took her on his back, and he begged the animals to stay where they were until they returned. Then he showed the little hare how the fruit had fallen upon the leaf, making the noise that had frightened her. And she said, "Yes, I see. The earth is not falling in." And the lion said, "Shall we go back and tell the other animals?" And they went back. The little hare stood before the animals and said, "The earth is not falling in." And all the animals began to repeat this to one another, and they dispersed gradually, and you heard the words more and more softly. "The earth is not falling in," etc., 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 until the sound died away altogether. So if you haven't yet come out of your pose and you're ready to do so, you can take the time to do that now. Perhaps this wasn't a pre-bed practice for you, it's just a practice to help you relax. If so, I hope it had that effect. Move slowly as you start to move again, and give yourself permission to take time for the rest of your day. I have other sleep stories if you like this idea, this concept, so check those out. Please do subscribe, and your like not only tells me that you enjoyed this, but it also lets other users know that this is something to watch. Have a great